Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day today. It's going to be a cool show. We are doing something a little different. We have, for the first time ever, a husband and wife team, and not just any husband and wife. We have the Blumenthals,
Oh,
as
yeah.
in Mr. and Mrs. Ralph and Deborah Blumenthal, and they're going to chat about their new book that they've written. And Jay, I don't know about you, this is kind of a new thing as far as picture books go.
It's, you know what, it's unique, it's moody, it's got a certain tone. The angles of the paintings, the way that it's angled with the words and what they talk about is beautifully done. It's unique. Yeah, we haven't covered a kid's book, but when you got the Blumenthals working on a book like this, you got to cover it. You got to see what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and this is a first where this isn't like science fiction. These are based on facts presented in a very mild and non-assuming way, just to encourage dialogue between maybe parents and their kids, not only about UAP, but the moon, planets. I think there was mention of a school sighting that happened in Rua, Zimbabwe, kind of in reference to the aerial school. So it's very cool that they're going there. And also, well, it is a UAP Studies podcast. So we would be remiss if we didn't ask Ralph Blumenthal his thoughts on recent things like the Arrow hearings and where he sees things going down the road. And I'm going to see if maybe he'll give us a little snippet, insider info. Maybe not, but let's see. We're going to ask anyway. So I'm excited, Jay. It's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to meting his wife.
Yeah, me too. It's the first time we'll meet Deborah, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
let's run our music. We'll get him on here, and let's have a cool, relaxing day in our virtual living room with the Blumenthals right
Awesome.
here on UAP Studies Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of UAP Studies Podcast. My name's Louis Borges. Joining me as always, my good friend and illustrious co-host, Mr. Jason Gilmet.
How's it going?
It's going good. This is
Yeah.
a cool day. We've never had a husband and wife pair on the show.
This is a first, yeah.
It is a first for us, yeah. And so today we've got Ralph and Deborah Blumenthal. A couple months ago, we did a deep dive with Ralph, talked about his career and the groundbreaking article in 2017 that he came up with. But we have his wife Deborah with us today, and she is an award-winning journalist. Some of the topics she writes on include health and nutrition, fitness, beauty, travel, interior design, all the stuff my wife loves. This lady is busy. She's written 16 books, both for adults and for children. And she also spent 4 years at the Sunday Times magazine as a beauty columnist. So big welcome to the show, Mr. and Mrs. Ralph and Deborah Blumenthal.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. So we'll start with you, Deborah.
Okay.
We want to introduce you to our audience. And if anybody's unfamiliar with you, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing career and working for the Times.
Okay. Well, actually, my career in terms of writing children's books began with a terrible tantrum that my daughter had. We were, just to briefly tell you what happened, we were at a play date and she was exhausted and hungry and had the world's worst tantrum. So I took her home under my arm on a winter day and put her in her crib and called my pediatrician. I said, where's the manual? How do I deal with this? And he said, oh, it's just normal. It's a tantrum. So while she was napping, I sat down and wrote my first children's book called The Chocolate Covered Cookie Tantrum. So that was in 1995, and that really started my career in children's book writing. And in terms of journalism, being married to a journalist was how that all began. And we actually collaborated many years ago because I was eating mostly vegetarian and Ralph was eating a lot of meat. And for a week, we experimented to see if I could convert him to vegetarianism. So that was our first project together. And
it was pretty successful.
Yeah.
Not totally successful, right.
And we didn't work together again. And actually, I think that we did one Family Circle article, it's a travel article. But other than that, the UFO book was our first children's book collaboration, certainly. And I've written a lot of picture book biographies, a biography of Frank Gehry, fashion icon Diana Vreeland, Ann Cole Lowe, who was the first Black couture designer who designed Jackie Kennedy's wedding gown. And so I've been having fun with picture book biographies as well. And Bill Cunningham, the former Times fashion photographer. So, that's where I am. I sort of jump around picture books, young adult novels. I don't do too much newspaper writing anymore because it's just more fun to do the picture books.
Right. And so out of curiosity, how did you two meet?
Oh, we met at
boy.
a party. Friend of mine was invited to the party. She said, bring eligible men. So she brought me. And I met Ralph at the party.
Right. Christmas party in New
Yeah.
York. And the rest is history.
Right.
Nice. It's like one of those romantic movies that you see from the 1980s or something, right? Yeah. Met
And
in
how
New
long you
York.
guys been married?
Ah,
Oh, boy.
tomorrow will be 46 years.
Yep.
Wow. Congrats.
Wow.
So your
And none of
anniversary
you
is
have murdered
tomorrow.
each other yet. That's crazy. That's
And we
Well,
wrote a book
congrats.
together.
Congrats on-
We wrote a book together.
yeah. Couples
Yeah,
that write
that's-
books together stay together, I guess, right?
Right.
The ultimate test of the relationship. We've been together this many years. Let's see if we can work together intensively.
That's right.
for-
Well, we know each other's work habits and we have great respect for each other's abilities. I mean, Deborah's certainly an expert in children's book writing. She saw me working on the UFO stuff, so she thought that would make a good children's book, so we can get into that. But we watched each other work and criticized each other's writing, critiqued it,
Right.
We've always, done very different things, but we do read each other's projects. I read numerous versions of The Believer as it was evolving, and Ralph always looks at my books before I send them out. So it's obviously great to have another set of trained eyes review something before you hand it in.
Yeah. And especially I was thinking about that earlier. How cool would it be as an author to have somebody you trust who can be blunt with you, but still
Exactly.
kind and help you along rather than just an editor or somebody
Yeah.
working for the publication company. And that's
Right.
a very cool dynamic. So the book is called UFOs, UFOhs. Mysteries in the Sky. And this is the first of its kind, I believe, the first book ever to explore the UAP phenomenon written specifically for kids. It describes real phenomenon and accounts from pilots and ship captains, scientists, and ordinary people. And it prompts the discussion between parents and kids about, things like the moon and the planets, and not all things in the sky are planes. So I'll throw it to you guys. Tell us a little bit about your book and, why did you decide to write this specific book as a project?
Well, the main point actually is that it's nonfiction. I mean, there are other children's books, picture books that, veer into fantasy and speculation or so. And we try to keep this strictly factual, which is why we think it's so groundbreaking. So it's really the first, as far as we know, the first children's picture book that's strictly nonfiction and just deals in known facts, and in a field, as you know, that is rife with speculation and fantasy and all kinds of weird things. But so we try to keep it really firmly grounded.
And it's a book that has more questions than answers, because obviously that's what this field is all about. But we hope it'll provoke discussion between parents and children, lay out, the things that we do know, and then bring up the discussion of, the mysteries, what we don't know. And hopefully kids will begin to think what could be up there, what could be out there, and just, get them fascinated with the field as we all are.
Yeah. And from an early age, saying that it's okay to see these things. I mean, I live in, I'm a kid from the 80s and the 90s, and I remember you didn't talk about any of that stuff in the 80s and 90s. Like, that was taboo and off the table. And if you even broach a subject with the wrong person, you can have the wrong, that person may have a wrong image of you as a whole. But now we're getting to a point where we're like, no, let's talk about it, because we all grew up during those times and we still had experiences and we've all seen things. It's still happening whether or not we address this issue. So it's great to see, to say to the kids now, no, it's okay to see it. Like, if you see something that's not normal,
Right.
talk about it. It's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, we really wanted to remove the stigma, which, as you point out, has been a problem all along. And it was really part of the government's official policy to cast doubt on the phenomenon, because the government itself was so puzzled and fearful of what this really was. They knew a lot more than they let on all along. But so they took the position years ago to cast doubt on it, to stigmatize people who came forward, to question their sanity. So we have come a long way. We can talk about that. I mean, there's been a lot of progress. It's not completely resolved yet, but as you say, it's now possible to talk about it.
And I think it's good. Sorry, go ahead, Deborah.
No, I was going to mention that also now children's books are more sophisticated than they ever were. And so they're dealing with topics that 10 of 20, 30 years ago, you never would have dealt with without, putting it into the fiction category, certainly. So, children are sophisticated. Parents are wanting to expose their children to different sensitive subjects, to bring them into the discussion, and to remove the fear factor and the mystery, and just to be open and honest with their kids in terms of the world around them.
Yeah, and it may prevent future trauma. We talk to a lot of people, and the biggest baggage they're carrying is how they were treated when they told people they loved and trusted that I saw something. So if anything, yes, remove the stigma, but it's not bad to let kids know, to have an open mind, and that if, they ever do have an encounter, and the numbers say that a big portion of them will at some point, that, it's okay. And maybe they won't have those effects that a lot of people are describing now, having lived through the taboo era. Maybe we can put an end to that with early education. So good on you for that.
Yeah. And, they're seeing a lot of stuff on TV all the time, and cartoons, and hearing it from their schoolmates, and picking up, bits and pieces of this. So we thought it's important to give them, some grounding, and give parents a basis for talking to their kids about it.
Yeah. There's also another aspect that I was thinking about the book, is it's not just introducing the subject to maybe parents and children, or a parent that believes in the subject or has had an experience and wants to start educating their children about it, but also for experiencers as well, because we've spoken to quite a bit of people now, Louis, that have had occurrences not only in their life, repeated occurrences with either sightings or abductions or experiences of some kind. And it comes from mom and dad's side. They used to have experiences, and now they're worried about their children having these experiences. And even thinking about it now, for the amount of people, the millions of people that are, estimated to be going through these experiences, there's nothing out there. There's no content. There's no book about it, right? They have to seek stuff. Like, I know, Ralph, you delve very deeply in John Mack's life. You're probably the leading expert at this point on the man. You've written a fantastic book, by the way, for the listeners and the viewers of YouTube. If you haven't picked up The Believer, so we're also promoting this book as well all the time, because it is a great book. But a man like him, and I find that, a very high intellectual person, you guys are very highly intellectual people, coming on board and talking about this and saying, hey, let's open that discussion in families. It is really important, especially for the experiencers as well. This is groundbreaking.
Well, as you point out, John Mack was very interested in children's reactions, because he found them really uncontaminated by society. They hadn't read much. They hadn't seen movies about UFOs. They basically were just reporting their observations and their experiences. So he took the children's accounts very seriously. But what I want to point out, it's not just the parents who've had experiences who now can talk to their kids about it, but the opposite, the parents who are skeptics and don't believe in it, or think it's all kinds of nonsense, or afraid of it, think it's demonic, let's say. This gives them a chance to look at the phenomenon really through very clear eyes, and discuss it with their kids. So one of the concerns we had all along was how this phenomenon would play in the heartland, where there is more skepticism, there's more fundamentalism, and parents who may be particularly averse to discussing the subject.
Right.
Sure. I wanted to ask you, Deborah, where does your interest in this topic come from? Have you ever had any experiences or anything that kind of prompted you to think, yeah, it's possible? Or get excited about it?
No, I have not had any experiences. And it really is a topic that I never spent much time with until, Ralph started researching his book. And hearing him, especially during the pandemic at home, doing podcast after podcast, made me wonder, gee, is there anything out there for children? As a children's book writer, you're always searching for new projects. And so it really surprised me that there wasn't, as far as I could find, a very basic factual book on UFOs for kids. So I said, wow, we should, try to collaborate on this.
Yeah, the artwork in the book is fantastic. I think it adds that depth to the, introducing the subject, but just the imagery of the paintings that are in the book, which is fantastic. I think that played a huge part too. The overall look of the book and the feel of it, like it's striking. I like it.
Adam Gustafson, who illustrated the book, is a very talented illustrator.
Yeah.
And, he said it took him a while in the beginning just to get the feel and the mystery, but I have the cover of the book right here.
Man, that's a good looking book.
Yeah, apparently he's illustrated, 30 books? Something like that.
He's got, I don't know how many actually, but
yeah, that's what my research showed. 30 books. And each one is like a work of art in itself. It could be a poster, just that page.
Exactly. He spends a lot of time, thinking through each project, and his use of color, I think, is particularly appropriate in this book because it's this eerie, greenish, dark, mixture of colors. And I think he does capture the mystery very, very well.
He had illustrated another book of Deborah's, The Blue House Dog. Wasn't it the blue? Yeah, it was the Blue House Dog. And we were a little reluctant to approach him on this because we know how busy he is, and he's a very successful artist, and there wasn't a lot of time we were giving him. But he was so enthusiastic. He jumped on this. He pushed everything else aside.
Oh, wow.
He really got into it, and he produced these paintings, actually, as you said, in record time. And very affecting too. So we're really delighted and humbled to be working with him on this.
Do you know if he's a believer in the phenomenon as well? I was thinking about that. Like in my mind, when I looked at the imagery, I'm thinking the person who drew this believes in the phenomenon. That was just the impression that I got. I think if it was a skeptic who illustrated it, maybe it would have a different feel and a different look. Do you know if he's
all I know is he's very engaged and he's very taken with the subject. He lives in New Jersey. We live in New York. We haven't gotten together and spoken in depth about it. So I don't know. He's never told us that he's had any experiences or anything like that. But I know he was very captivated by the subject.
But also John Mack had never had an experience of his own, which is true. He kind of regretted that. But later he thought it was probably for the best because it kept him pure to look at the phenomenon not as a partisan or anybody with an agenda, but somebody coming to it from the outside and just trusting the accounts that he had gotten from the people who sought him out. So, Deborah doesn't have these experiences. I don't have them as far as I can remember, and John Mack never did. But it doesn't take somebody who had these experiences to be respectful of the phenomenon and to want to look into it, because it is really one of the most colossal mysteries in the cosmos, surely. And if you're not interested in this, there's got to be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Well, that's always fascinating too, because a lot of the people that we've spoken to that have accomplished something in ufology, meaning like a book or breakthrough research, they've had an experience themselves, and it drove them. I wouldn't say drives them mad, but it drives them to pursue an answer to a question that if you ask anybody on the planet, we're all like, I don't know. So we have to look into it, right? We have no other choice. We have depending on the government to come out and tell us anything has been shot down like a Chinese balloon. You know what I mean? I don't no longer believe that's going to happen. But as long as the people, and the people in the military, we mentioned this quite a bit, the men and women that serve and come out and say, look, there's something going on, because the military is having engagements with these unknowns, through my career there, and as far as I can find out through history, and it's not being told to the public, which is also having the similar experiences. So we all know that we're all experiencing this together. We've even interviewed people inside the Department of Defense that were working for CIAs, and they were experiencers themselves while they were working for the government. So it doesn't matter who you are, what level and rank we give you based on our, social standings. This is an issue that affects each and every one of us, even if you're not experiencer yourself. The implications of them being here will affect you at some point.
Right. I mean, one of the many mysteries of this phenomenon is who gets to participate in it.
Right.
It's not something you can, volunteer for. And John Mack, as I said, would have loved to have, seen a UFO, to have experienced the phenomenon firsthand. But for some reason, which we don't understand, he never was.
Mm-hmm.
Never. But you're absolutely right that the numbers of people who have experienced this phenomenon in one way or another the numbers are so astounding that this issue cannot be swept under the rug. I mean, people know what they've seen, and all the years when the government told them, no, you didn't see that, or you saw a hallucination, or it was a dream or a nightmare, that's the ridiculous thing. I mean, these people know what they've experienced, know what they've seen. So, I think we're heading in the right direction. I mean, it's going to take a while. I don't think we're at the cusp of disclosure, but I also think that we can talk about this. The government has come a considerable distance toward acknowledging the phenomenon and saying that it is real.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, just to go back to the book for a minute, because the phenomenon is so varied, there's so many aspects of it, so many things you could have delved into. You did mention that you wanted sort of a broad acceptance, even in really fundamentalist areas. So how did you decide what to put in the book, and like what wouldn't make the cut or what didn't make the cut for this book?
Well, we were very strict about what went into the book, and we only included documented, like the story of the children in Zimbabwe who witnessed something, and their accounts that were all very similar. And, there was no doubt about it. There was no question about what they encountered, what they saw, because they all reported the same type of thing. And the Navy pilot videos we included those. We spoke briefly about Roswell. So we really stuck to the very, very undisputed accounts and no speculation, really. And we talked about the mysteries and what we hope children will talk about. So we were pretty limited in scope, but we were confident that everything we included was rock solid.
And also we had the benefit of a very good team at the University of New Mexico Press, our publishers, and they subjected the book to a lot of scrutiny because, they were a university press, so
Right.
They didn't want to be accused of, misstating anything or going out on a limb. And they actually showed the book to a number of experts, child psychologists and others, for their input. And we were happy to say it was all positive. So we had a lot of set of eyes on this. And we, as Deborah said, we were very careful to stick to facts and cases that are, historic, like Roswell and the school in Harare in Zimbabwe, where children saw some kind of a landing, and 60 different kids that drew pictures had some experience that no one could explain, and John Mack investigated that. There's actually a film out about it, the name of the school, the Ariel phenomenon, by one of John Mack's experiencers, Randy Nickerson. It's a very good film, getting attention now. So there are a lot of set of eyes on this. We made the initial decisions, but the University of New Mexico Press editors looked it over too and made sure that everything was solid. And so that's why it came out the way it did.
You mentioned that they showed this as kid psychologists. like
They
to make
do.
sure that there
Yeah,
wasn't
they
going to
want
be
to make
any
sure they're not
issue.
poisoning the youth's minds, right? If they're putting their
Right.
name on it, they want to make sure it's not
Right.
traumatizing, I would
Well,
imagine.
Wow. Yeah.
right, they wanted to know if child psychologists had issues with it or concerns, if there was anything that we should address that we didn't, or anything we said that they felt might be problematic in some way. So, we were glad to have that extra level of scrutiny.
Right. No, it's interesting too, because a lot of kids that have experiences with entities or UFOs seem to perceive this phenomenon differently than we do as adults. As adults, it's a threat to our kids, threat to our national security, but kids have a different view of it. And throughout researching this phenomenon, you find how many times crafts have appeared near schools or near parks where children are playing, like there's an actual interest there. And the kids have a different perspective of this phenomenon than we do. You don't often hear a kid say, I was afraid, even though they might be a little bit fearful of the situation. They knew they were safe somehow. And I don't think we perceive that as adults, right? So there's a fascination there with kids in this phenomenon.
Well, kids are truth tellers, and this is what fascinated John Mack, who was very adept as a child psychologist as well as a psychiatrist. He had 3 sons of his own, and he was very interested in their development. And when you see him interacting with young people, he literally gets down on their level. He gets down on the floor, and the way he talks to them is so sensitive. He doesn't prejudge them. I mean, some skeptics accuse John Mack of distorting the evidence or planting information, but he doesn't do that. When you watch the actual videos, he's very open-minded about what the kids have to say.
Yeah.
So it is very interesting to get the kids' accounts, and this is on film. It's in the movie, The Aerial Phenomenon. I have excerpts in my book, The Believer, about John's interaction with the kids, and it really is fascinating. As you say, they don't express fear so much as they're kind of a conduit for these messages that they said they were receiving.
Yeah. And we had Randy Nickerson on our show. We talked about his movie, and we were mentioning earlier about trauma, and the main character in the movie, now she's grown up, but as soon as she went back to that same place where it happened, instantly rush of emotions and fear and like nerves and all this stuff over something that happened so long ago. And it even as a kid, a lot of people kind of downplayed that and said, kids, what do they know? They know enough that implanted them for the rest of their lives. And even as grown adults, they would never forget it. So do you think that would be the case if, and a big part of it was they explained that they had never seen aliens or like UFO movies.
Yeah, they didn't have a frame of reference.
Exactly. Yeah. And if
so
your book had been out, do you think maybe that would have removed some of that for those witnesses?
Who knows? Who knows?
I don't know, but the kids are very fresh in their responses.
Just very visceral responses to life.
And as you say, with the Randy Nickerson's film, takes them, sees them, interviews them today as they're grown-ups, and they're still shaped by this remarkable experience they had as young people. You never forget that. Obviously, it's just it's an unforgettable experience. And they know the difference between a nightmare or a hallucination and this reality. It's some kind of other reality that we don't understand, which is why we say in the subtitle of our book, "A Mysteries in the Sky." It is a mystery. We don't claim to have an answer to solve it, but it starts with understanding, that acknowledging that this is a mystery, and none of the skeptics, so-called skeptics, have a satisfactory explanation. We just have to keep an open mind, but acknowledge that this is something that is going to be with us for quite a while, has been with us probably, for many, many, millennia.
Yeah.
And we just don't know.
But it's, again, the importance of having people like yourselves, Ralph and Deborah, people of intellect, people that are writers, and people have contributed, people that are passionate, that are talking about this issue. and saying, you know what, we also are interested in this issue. This concerns us as much as it concerns a common person. And I'm not saying people are beneath you, but I'm just saying that you're achieving something. You have achieved something in your life to be able to open people's minds to different ideas and concepts. You both have done that as careers, and you're able to do that in your books as well. Saying, hey, let's explore this topic because it deserves to be talked about. And even Ralph, in your book, The Believer, I mean, it's a great, fantastic read because you write it like basically we get this in-depth look of a man that was passionate about the subject. And what was his drive and the passion? Because just to be introduced by Bud Hopkins saying, hey, you should look into these. And it's like, oh, a bunch of wackos. And then to be converted and saying these guys are not crazy. These are legit people, police officers and people, again, in the Defense Department, military, to the common, person that stays at home, takes care of the kids. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, what creed, religion, location on this planet. This is a universal problem that we have, right? Yeah, that's what UAP, universal alien problem. We all have it, right?
Yeah.
I'll also say something. I'm not the expert on John Mack, but one thing that struck me when Ralph was doing his research was he was very childlike, and he was so open to all types of different experiences.
John Mack, not me.
No, John Mack. Ralph too, to some degree, but not as much as John Mack. But he did open to himself up to life, to all kinds of, breathing practices and philosophies and experiences. And I think that's very unusual in an adult. And especially in a medical doctor. And, that's maybe what drew me a little bit into the subject, the fact that someone like that could be so taken with people who'd had these experiences that they didn't understand. So, it's a fascinating yarn, and this seemed like a natural follow to The Believer.
And I mean, you do have to be kind of courageous to wade into this topic, because there are a lot of people out there who will disparage you. And in John Mack's case, Harvard investigated him. They set up what I call an inquisition, really, to look into his practices and finances. Really very intrusive. But he was a very special kind of guy. He had the courage to not to care about how it might look to his colleagues, and a lot of people made fun of him. But he was really the kind of special human being who doesn't walk away from a mystery, who's determined to investigate it, and which is why at the end of my book I sort of compare him to a hero, the hero's journey. So that did inspire me. I have to say that. And he made a lot of mistakes too. He wasn't a perfect human being. But this is a field that really invites and requires courage and independent investigation, because nobody has an answer, but it can't be ignored.
Right. Even talking to Avi Loeb, I think it was last week, Louis, and he mentioned that he's been like this since he was a kid. If he would approach the kitchen table and ask an adult a question, and the adult would just regurgitate some sort of answer that wasn't adequate to him, or just sort of blew the subject away, he would walk away and go find the answer out for himself. And he says he continues to do that even now. Like, he's sitting down with people from SETI, which are in charge of looking for intelligent life, but to them, they can't fathom that we have UFOs. Like, that, they can't imagine that, right?
It's interesting. John Mack was no great fan of SETI. And he laughed about the fact that they were using, radio waves to try to communicate to other intelligent civilizations. And he said, searching the cosmos, using SETI is like searching the cosmos for a good Italian restaurant. We're so hopelessly bound in our anthropomorphic mindset that we are looking, for something, new and unfathomable in the cosmos, using very basic, maybe it's the only technology we have. I grant that, but he was against the idea that, or I should say, he favored the idea of expanding our vision to try to think of things that I just don't come to mind easily. But just using radio waves to, beam out a signal didn't seem like the right way to go about it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
And
primitive.
a lot of times when information comes out in this field, people get a hard time. Like look at the life of John Mack. So I wanted to ask you, what's been the feedback so far? This is first of its kind, like you said, as far as you know. Have you had good reviews, bad reviews? What are people saying about your book?
Yeah, talk about reviews.
So far, everyone seems very interested in the topic. I haven't gotten reviews from kids yet. Those are the ones we prize. So I'll be eager to hear more about that. But certainly the response has been, very good and very positive. So we'll see what happens along the way. We're going to be doing some children's book fairs, and I think those are great because we'll see who comes over to the table, whether it's the parents, it's the children, what they think when they take the book and open it. So that, that's all to come.
Children are a very tough audience, by the way.
Oh, really?
I have a 2-year-old. I know this for a fact.
You have to get their attention, and talk about, a tough room.
Right.
When you're reading, I've been at many of Deborah's readings to children, and her best books really grab the kids, and they're not faking it. When they're interested, they're rapt, and when they're bored, they walk away. So we'll be very interested to see how they respond to this.
I will say, though, this book is being marketed to the slightly older picture book reader, 6 to 9. I mean, it's not a book for a kid who's a year old.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll enjoy looking at the pictures, but, in terms of content, it really is for an older child and even a middle grade reader.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a plan to do another one of these books, or maybe go into different topics, consciousness, for example? Any plans for that in the future?
An idea.
We really haven't gone there yet. We haven't talked about that yet.
We're always looking for ideas, and
let's write a book, Ralph. Let's do it.
I
I
have
was a
found
straight A student. I can write.
all my books, and I'm Deborah's too, come about in serendipitous ways. I mean, we pick up something that is, interests us, takes us in a new direction. Some of my books grew out of other books I was doing, and I came across a character. The John Mack book came about because I was in Texas. We were in Texas I was a correspondent for the New York Times, and I happened to pick up one of John Mack's books. And I thought, gee, this is interesting. A Harvard psychiatrist who's interested in, UFOs and alien abduction phenomenon. So it's a strange process coming up with an idea for a book. You just never know when an idea will occur to you. It's either an experience that you've had in your family or something else. But we're open to, working together again, because it really was a good experience.
Now, just out of curiosity, you're very, two pleasant people, right? And I could totally see these, these book tours are going to be successful for you guys. It's not going to be an issue. But when because we all have family and friends that are on the fence on this issue. You guys have written books and have accomplished, careers and winning journalists. When you approach a subject like UFOs or alien abductions, or the possibility, even in conversations with your friends and family, are you getting a lot of pushback, or people sort of just letting you have, your say in it? Like, because I've run across a lot of family and friends deleted me off of Facebook. When I first started the podcast, they didn't know what this was about. They don't want to, if I start talking about the subject, they glaze over, and I could tell I lost them. Now, are you guys experiencing that as well?
It's a very good question. Absolutely. I went for a haircut a few months ago, and I mentioned, my hairdresser always says, "Oh, what are you working on?" So I was telling her about the book, and she said, "Oh, do you believe in UFOs?" So I said, "Well, it's not really a question of belief."
Yeah.
And yes, we get a lot of that. I mean, there are really highly educated people we mention the book to, and they kind of push the chair back a little bit. And absolutely, some people, they don't want to talk about it, they think it's wacko, and others are fascinated. So there's definitely that disparity, and that's just sort of the way the world is. We hope more and more people will be drawn to the subject, but some of them are not, and they don't want to know, and they think it's crazy. Very simple.
Right.
That's why we try to keep this book so basic. But with the believer, I recently had a comment from somebody I work with at a college in New York City. She said she read the book. I said, "Oh, that's great." And she said, "Don't believe a word of it."
Oh, ouch. Ouch.
So I said, "Well, I'm glad you read it anyway." She didn't think I was lying in the book, but she just didn't buy into the whole alien, phenomenon, which is a difficult sell because there's no proof, as we know. It's like, so much of the phenomenon, it's just anecdotal. So I get that a lot, and we probably will get that with this, but it's okay. We're grown-ups. We can deal with it, and we'll discuss it. I'm just glad, first of all, we're happy that people are picking up this book and the believer and reading it and grappling with the issues, which are very difficult.
Yeah.
So that's the first step. And then we'll deal with, their reactions.
And to that point of reactions, I wanted to ask you, Deborah, how did you feel when Ralph was writing that article in 2017? Because that changed the landscape of this topic. Did you think like, here's my award-winning husband, is this a career ender? Or were you excited that he's going to be the first guy to actually bring this out on a huge platform like the New York Times?
Well, I was excited. And, it's a topic that he's obviously been very intimately involved in for years now. And I was glad it was finally getting the public airing that I thought it deserved. So that was very exciting. But, hopefully there'll be more and more coming out and more newspaper stories. So, they're always a tough sell, those articles. They really are. But here had concrete, information to go with. And
I got to say that when Leslie Kane and I and Helene Cooper of the Times came out with this story in December 2017, we really didn't know what the reaction would be. We came forward with this news, groundbreaking news, that the Pentagon had a secret unit that was, studying UFOs, and we came out with the videos of some of these objects, which were, really the best proof so far that they actually existed. But and the Times put it on the front page on a Sunday. We were thrilled with that, but we really didn't know what the reaction would be. Now, in retrospect, 5 years later, people are saying, "Oh, it changed the paradigm and made it safe for mainstream media to discuss UFOs." So that's very comforting to hear that, and to think that maybe we had a role in changing the mindset, but we didn't really know what to expect. Like so often in, my long career in journalism, you just don't know how an article is going to hit.
You know what, and I don't mean to take this away from the Me Too movement at all. It was important at the time, but it was kind of like a Me Too for UFOs. And what it did is that it, wouldn't say vindicated, but for a lot of people, we even asked George Knapp how he felt when the article came out, and we said, "Did you feel vindicated? Did you feel that justice was being served for all these years of servitude and saying this stuff is happening?" And it kind of did. Like it affected people. It affected, okay, look, for instance, the article came out. I freaked out when I saw it on, I think it was on MSN or something like that at work. And of course I was a UFO guy, so I shared it to everybody at work. I was like, see what I was talking about, right? I'm not crazy. And it made me think about wanting to be more active. I joined MUFON. After MUFON, we started the podcast. The podcast has been, 3 years now, Louis? Like
2.5.
Yeah. So that article had a direct effect on how you guys are here right now talking with us, is because that article kicked it off, right? So
a lot depends on timing, and a lot of the timing is out of your hands. Just the way things hit, that's, to go back to the mystery, that's sort of the mystery of the universe. Why some things will suddenly find an audience at one time and they won't another time. It just hit at the right time. The zeitgeist. Right.
Yeah.
The old journalism saying, never screw up on a slow news day. Well, we happen to fall into a time when I guess there was not too many other dramatic things going on in the world that would take attention away. And it just hit at a time when it's kind of captured attention, and it is kind of mysterious. So we're grateful for that. And I don't begin to understand it, all the factors that go into that. But I think the world was ready. Certainly, the American public and the rest of the world was ready to hear something like this. And it had been building a long time. I'm not saying, we were the very first to come out with this information. It had been drabbing out over the years. This happened to, sum up a lot of the trends that were going on. So it's kind of mysterious. We're very happy to have had this role, because I think it did change a lot of the mindset.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, we're now having government hearings, like publicly broadcast, that you can tune in and listen to them, go back and forth over it. And there's always lots of talk whenever we have one of these, usually more negative than positive if you're
That's
in
true.
the enthusiast world. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the recent AARO hearings, when they're saying things like there's nothing that we have that really looks like it defies the general laws of physics. And yet you have, you read the reports from your article, what those pilots are saying directly contradicts what AARO is now telling us. And for me anyway, a little disappointing that this resolution office, the buck doesn't seem to stop there. It seems to be, put it in somebody else's corner and let them look at it. In fact, Kirkpatrick even said, and I liked him prior to this meeting, but he even said, it is my goal to turn UAP into SEP, someone else's problem. So I have my own thoughts on it. We did a show about it, but I want to get your thoughts on the recent AARO.
Yeah, no, I'm equally disappointed. We know that the government has a lot of information that they're not sharing. Now, some of that is for national security reasons. It's complicated issues at stake. We don't want our adversaries on Earth to know, some of the information we've compiled. But in the end, a lot of this information really deserves to be shared with humanity in general, because it affects, the future of humanity and issues that go beyond national security to, what's going on in the cosmos and other intelligence, et cetera. So I share your disappointment with the hearings. We know some of it, you have to pay attention to the literalness of it. There are people who appear there, government officials, and they're being very, very literal when they say things like, well, I myself do not have evidence of extraterrestrial contact. Well, that may very well be true. That person himself or herself doesn't have that evidence. That doesn't mean the government doesn't have it or know of it. So they're being very, very cautious and careful. But we know, we at the New York Times and other people who study this know that there's a lot of information that has not come out. It's classified. And I think it will, some of it will come out because we're continuing to scratch around and report.
It was the arrogance of the comment that Louis just pointed to when the guy said, make it somebody else's problem. Like if you hired me to do a job, let's say an editor of your book, let's say, and you asked me for an update, how are things going on your book? Well, I'd like to make it somebody else's problem. Right? Yeah. You're paying me for this, right? And that's exactly it. It pissed me off to hear that. Like, how arrogant are you? Like a year and a half in at most to say I'd like to make it somebody else's problem. Not only that, but even if 95% of what they get is garbage or explainable, that 5% that they can't explain, that defies anything that we know logically, and they can't determine what it is still an unknown. It's still a UAP and still part of their job, and they should focus on that 5%. Yet he's not excited about it. He's like, just dismisses it. Like, give it to MUFON. Give the budget to MUFON. People that have been doing this for a long time that actually care and want to see progress in this field, as opposed to getting a new guy that knows nothing about this every single time they start a new project. You find out what the answers are. Well, go ask the guys that have been investigating this for 40 plus years, like Jacques Vallée. Why isn't he part of the team? Like, it blows my mind that they don't do that.
He's behind the scenes. He's been very, very helpful to, understanding what's going on. And Lou Elizondo has been terrific in talking about it. I mean, he's still under constraints as an intelligence guy. He can't say everything he knows, but when you think where we've come from, how far we've come from a time when military personnel were told not to share any information they had. You didn't see that. Don't, if you report it, you'll be referred to a psychiatrist. Airline pilots were told, you didn't see anything. Don't report it to me. Now that has changed. Officially, there is a whistleblower statute now encouraging people to come forward to report their experiences to proper congressional authorities. That's why I say we've come a long way. It's sometimes hard to see because we're so eager for the next step. But when you look back and see how the government used to tamp this down and to completely deny what was going on, I think we've made a lot of progress.
Do you have you heard of anything coming down the pipeline? Any little insider snippets that you can talk about?
Not that I can talk about.
That's a good answer.
It's
Well,
classified.
There's stuff going on, and there's a lot of good reporters, working on it. I think we'll see, as I say, it's very recently that that this information has come out. Our story came out in the New York Times 5 years ago. Since then, other stories came out. We had a story in the New York Times about near misses with some of these objects. We had a story about congressional committees being briefed on possible, materials from crashed UFOs. We were very careful in that story,
Right.
not to get ahead of our information that we could confirm. But there's really some interesting stuff out there that a lot of people are working on. So I think it'll come out.
And it's good. Again, you guys are putting out content that is, the consumer can have a wider opening or view into what this phenomenon is about. Now, I'm just going to throw it out there. You were mentioning about stories. You could come out with a series of books based on different individual cases, maybe just, a children's book on Roswell, a children's book on Eddie and Barty Hill, which you know quite a bit about. So, that'd be cool. Like books, I would collect them for sure, just as
Some of them
book
would
collector.
be horror though, because they don't end so well.
Well,
Talk to them.
Yeah. Don't do a Fire in the Sky version of
No.
Travis Walton's story. That traumatized me as a kid.
Or a
I don't know if
Whitley
you guys seen
Strieber
that
one.
movie.
Yeah.
Don't do Whitley
Yeah.
Strieber one.
Well, we're
Yeah.
going to go on Whitley's show tomorrow, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's on our network, actually. We belong to the UNX network. His show is broadcast as well as ours, and we're also in chats to have him come join us in the future too. So
Oh yeah, he's great.
yeah, very well spoken.
Yeah, he really is. And talk about mysteries. It's just phenomenal stuff. And
Yeah. The more you delve into the subject, the more you realize how many layers and how many aspects of life it actually dominates. Not only would it dominate the individual at home, but it would impact political decisions going forward, global situations with governments having to talk about what do we do with this subject, or now that we're open about these visitations, whatever they are. It seems like we're all individualistic. I'm having a hard time with my words today, guys. My French Canadian's coming out. Individualistically, as a country, is trying to solve these problems as opposed to working together as a group and saying, you know what, we're also having the same problem. We're getting the same amount of action as you guys are. Like obviously the Zimbabwe case that you guys covered. This is happening globally every day. And it's not just in the United States, although all the stories seem to come out from the United States, but this stuff happens all the time. Just quickly before we let you guys go, I would like to hear from each of you. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what would the implications of us coming to grips with this? Would this unify us, or would it give us at least more scientifically more of a boost to try to discover more about this and to expand our science and knowledge the way we know it?
Wow, that's such a hard question. Obviously, we would love to see countries of the world sharing information. On every topic and every, from health to politics to the environment. It doesn't seem to work that way in most cases, but of course, we'd all be better off with shared information and, common ground. And, but, it's just so much to ponder in terms of, we don't know what necessarily what other countries are doing or what they've found and what they're hiding. And
Very true. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
you're
good point.
more of an expert there than I
Well,
am.
actually,
Go
you
ahead.
know, we one of the assumptions, especially during World War II, was that the Foo Fighters, which is what, you know, our pilots saw in the sky, balls of light or so, we assumed that they were, our pilots assumed they were enemy, you know, phenomena, enemy aircraft, and the enemy they thought that it was us. So there was very little sharing. To this day, we know that the Soviet Union, the Chinese, not the Russians now, it was the Soviet Union, they are as puzzled by things that they have discovered as we are, and they're doing their own research, surely, no doubt about it. But we're not sharing really that information with each other. In Europe, they're doing more sharing. I mean, the French and the Belgians have done some really interesting research. And we are sharing information with our allies, the Australians and the Brits and others. But a universal approach to this problem is way off in the future, as far as I can tell, even though every country has identified this as an issue, for sure. Yeah. So it is fascinating. And if we only could get together on it, I think it would really advance, but that's kind of utopian.
The only positive, and Avi Loeb told us this, is that science doesn't really know those boundaries. He said, even now, the US and Russia still collaborate on scientific things. The scientists are open-minded enough to know that political bounds change based on who's in power, but science needs to go on. So if there is any positive out of that, we are communicating as humans more than just Americans, Chinese, Russians. We have a flag, but we are all human. So
absolutely. And there are papers being written in scientific journals that that information can't be confined and contained. It's too big for that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Before we let you guys go, where can people find your book, and where can they find you if they want to learn more about your other projects?
Okay. Well, we both have websites, DeborahBlumenthal.com, RalphBlumenthal.com. And at the moment, the book is now at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it's finding its way into bookstores. So, the distribution is taking a bit of a while, but Amazon is shipping it now, and BarnesandNoble.com is shipping it as well.
And today, online, you can find anything and everything. So just Google it and you'll see who has it. So we're confident it'll get out there.
Yeah, and it's available on hard copy and Kindle version as well, so off of Amazon. We can find it on Amazon.ca here, no problem. So, on the Canadian side, if you're purchasing it from Canada, you can get it for sure. We do appreciate your time, guys. We know that living in New York, time is very precious, and we do appreciate everything that you guys are doing, the books that you're putting out, and the focus on the subject. I mean, you're not going to get many thank yous out there because people are a little bit more tight-lipped, but from us, we do appreciate what you guys are doing. You're putting attention and focus on the subject more so than other people, and it's good to see people like yourselves that are award-winning journalists and authors saying, hey, let's look into this seriously. It motivates us to keep doing what we're doing. And like I said, just seeing that you guys are constantly putting more and more books, and Ralph, you have to write more books like you wrote about John, and you have to continue that line of work. It's very good, very good.
Not many heroes like John Mack out there, but
we're looking for them.
We're looking for them.
Yeah, exactly.
But with this young generation that we're appealing to in UFOs, OHS, maybe there are kids coming along now who are going to be the John Macks of the future. They're not going to be intimidated. They're going to ask the tough questions. It's surely going to be a different world for the young people growing up now.
Yeah,
than there were for the older generation with all the stigma that was attached to it. So that's encouraging. I think that the young people are not going to be as easily put off. They're going to be asking tough questions. So, and you mentioned Avi Loeb. I mean, he's doing remarkable work, and interesting that he's at Harvard too.
Yeah.
in the footsteps of John Mack, although he doesn't share a lot of John's. John was a different kind of scientist, let's say. He was a psychiatrist and obviously an astrophysicist. But anyway, it is interesting that he's keeping the torch burning. So let's see what maybe this book will invite some kids to come forward when they grow up, and that'll be a great achievement.
The book is called UFOs, Mysteries in the Sky. Thanks again, Ralph and Deborah Blumenthal, for your time, for being our guests. We'd love to have you back anytime. We feel like you're family now. So thank you for everything that you're doing for the community. And thanks
so
again for
much.
coming on.
Thanks.
Our
We
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.